So finally, let's start talking about real video games. Now that we had that discussion about mixtape, it's time to actually talk about real video games like Fable 2. So like I said previously, I am going to go through all the Fable games in preparation for the new Fable game that it's going to be released at the end of this year. So I am going to start saying that Fable 2 it's also a walk game. How is it walk? Well, for starters, there are 3 heroes that represent each of the main attributes in the game. The hero of strength, the hero of will, and the hero of cunning. Basically, your strength skills, your magic skills, and your rogue skills. And each is represented by a hero. And guess whom is the hero of strength? You would think it's a big guy, a barbarian guy. Well, you will be incorrect, because since this game is walk, the hero of strength is a woman. It's a big chungus woman with the name of Hammer. That's your hero of strength. That's your empowered women, the typical stereotype that is constantly used to portray these big bulky women that can destroy men on a single hit. That's your hero of strength in Fable 2. Guess whom is the hero of will? The hero that represents will, intellect, magic. Guess whom? It's a black dude. Of course it is. And the hero of cunning, the hero of the rogue skills, the hero of skill, I think it is. Guess who is the hero of skill? It's finally a white guy. We are winning, guys. Of course, right? Except that he's gay, and except that he is clearly an evil character. Not woke, guys. It's not woke. It's all in your imagination. What do you mean is woke? It was released in 2008. Woke didn't exist back then. Go and watch my video of Fable 1. I explained right there. But in short, cultural Marxism has been here for a while. So no, woke existed back then. So stop trying to gaslight us. You also have this typical quest that you will find in woke games. In these woke games, you will always find these quests that are related to cultural Marxism in one way or the other. In this case, in Fable 2, you have a quest of a guy that is being bothered by his dad because his dad wants his son to meet a woman and get married. Because he wants to leave the farm to him. He wants to leave his farm to his son. But he needs his son to be married. The problem is that his son doesn't like women. What do you know? He's gay. And now you have a quest revolving this guy, and you can help him to find a woman or possibly a guy. Because I brought him a woman. Fuck that shit. I'm not going to bring you a man. So in the end, he reveals to his papa that he is gay. And of course, you have this wholesome talk between the both of them, and his dad tells him that he loves him too much and immediately understands that he's an homosexual and it's okay with it. In fact, they are going to sell the farm and move to the city. Fuck the farm. This shit is very woke. All of the aspects of this particular quest are really, really woke. And if that shit released today, you will say the game is woke. So don't lie to yourself saying that Fable 2 is not woke, because it is woke. There is also, this is kind of minor, but there is a transsexual or a transvestite in the game, and the game more or less makes fun of that guy, but I am not okay with the normalization of that kind of stuff, but it's there. So that's why I think this game is woke. And it's not that I think it's woke, it's that it's woke. So now let's go to the bad aspects of Fable 2. I liked Fable 2, I liked it more than Fable 1, but I am conflicted in the score that I am going to give to this game because I really enjoyed Fable 2. One part of me thinks it's a good game, but another part thinks that the game is one of those games that goes 2 steps forward and then goes 2 steps backwards. Because many of the problems of the first game are not present in this game, but many of the problems in the first game are also present, but new ones arise. For example, my biggest problem with this game is that they removed the minimap. I don't understand why the fuck they removed the minimap, but it makes playing this game a fucking chore. Like, I will totally understand someone that says that hates this game based only on the lack of a minimap, because what you need to be doing is that you are going to be constantly pausing the game to see the map, to see where to go. It's mind-blowingly stupid. And the problem is, I already hear it. It's like I am traveling in time and I am going to the past and I'm listening to these idiots. Oh, I have a great idea, guys. What if we remove the minimap so the game it's more immersive? And they thought, yes, that sounds really good. Let's remove the minimap. We're going to minimize the HUD of this game because we want our game to be really immersive. Of course. Really immersive is to be constantly pressing start, to constantly pause your fucking game to know where the fuck you're going. Really immersive experience, guys. Of course. Another problem I have with the game is that they, instead of fixing the issue in the first game about the armors, that you basically only equipped the best gear with the best defense, now they decided to destroy armor, and armor has no value. In fact, there is no armor, there is only clothes, and basically they are only there for fashion purposes. Now, there is a bad issue with that, but there is a good aspect to it. The good aspect is that you can pretty much equip your character with whatever the fuck you want, and it's not going to affect you. That's the good aspect. But the bad aspect is that you have less role-playing gameplay options in the game. Now there is less customization, less stats, less meat to this RPG. Another aspect that actually got worse is the augment system, because in the first one my criticism was that the augment system was very simplistic and that you couldn't equip these augments into armor. Well, the same issues persist in Fable 2, and it's even worse now, because augments are now a piece of shit. Now they truly serve no fucking purposes. No kidding and no joke, I never used one in my entire playthrough, because that's how bad they are. Because they somehow tried to say, oh, let's redesign the augments and now they are going to give you a boon, but they are also going to give you like a curse. So each time you put one of these augments, the vast majority of them have like a good side of them, but they come with a downside. I don't like that fucking shit. People are just not going to use them, like I did. Another problem is that since the RPG elements, the RPG stats, the character building, the meat of building your character is not there, the loot in the game sucks. Each time you open a new chest, you know it's going to be garbage. It's like playing those Zelda Breath of the Wild games, Tears of the Kingdom, where you have this massive open world, pretty good designed, but guess what? There is nothing to find. The exploration is not rewarding. Why? Because you find all kinds of fucking bullshit. Your weapons destroy itself. What's even the point? A similar thing happens in Fable 2. Each time you find a chest, it's just fucking trash. You find barely anything. The best weapons come from stores. There is not even a point in exploring this game because this game is a bit more open than Fable 1, but there is no point. The chests are boring. Now, since they don't have a mini-map, the game relies on yellow paint. But now this time it's not yellow paint, it's a yellow spell, a yellow mist that guides you to your objectives. This is retardation. You should have allowed the player to have a minimap, and on top of that, you can now instantly teleport to your quest objectives. You don't even have to walk around the map anymore. Now, the only way the game is not going to allow you to teleport to a quest location is if you haven't been in that location before. But since the map is not that big, most of the time you are going to have already explored that region. So most of the time you are going to be allowed to teleport to your quest objectives. And I'm going to be honest, but I most of the time teleported because I was sick and fucking tired of not having a minimap. Not having a minimap really hurts this game. This game would have been much better with a minimap, because you will feel incentivized to explore. But since exploring means that you have to be constantly pausing your game, it's a piece of shit, to be honest. Now, you have a dog in this game, and I don't dislike having a dog, but the issue I have with it is that it's used to reveal to you locations of things that are hidden in the ground. So you have to dig them out with a shovel, and I think that mechanic is fucking stupid, because why the fuck do you have these quote-unquote hidden spots that your dog is going to reveal to you anyway? What's even the point? I think it would have been a much better mechanic if you had to actually search the ground to find these dig spots instead of having your fucking psychic dog telling you where these spots are. It feels like it's just there for the sake of being there. Trolls are back, but at the very least, they are still annoying to fight, and I fucking hate these stupid fights, but they are not as annoying to fight as in the first game. They toned them down. Now, it's a negative for me that they still exist and they are not particularly redesigned because they are still fucking annoying to fight and you rely on slow time to beat these motherfuckers. Now, I don't like this boss design. It's terrible. These trolls are fucking terrible. Another problem is that the game has tons of loading screens and they take a while to load. I had to play this on Xenia, the Xbox 360 emulator, and I am going to be honest, the emulator is a piece of shit. I'm sorry, I am grateful for the work that these guys have put into the emulator, but I have to be honest, the emulator is a piece of shit. It's constantly crashing, guys. I am not going to consider this in the score of the game, of course, because it's not the issue with the game, it's an issue with the emulator. But I have to point out that it's really fucking annoying and sad and angers me that there is not a better way to play this game. It's either this or paying for Xbox Game Pass. And I am not going to pay Microsoft for this because I'd rather have the game on Steam. This game needs like a remake, a remaster or something like that. At the very least, it needs support on Steam. And I hope with the new game that we see these games, Fable 2 and 3, ported or brought back because Fable 3 already was in Steam, but I want to see them on PC. They deserve a PC port. So if you're going to play on Xenia, this just be prepared. You need a special build for Fable 2. The latest Xenia emulator is not going to work. Don't use that. You need a special build for Fable 2 that you're going to find on the Xenia Discord, and you need some patches, etc. You can ask for help in Discord if you want to understand how to emulate this game, but you're not going to avoid the crashes. The game is going to constantly crash on that shit emulator. It's going to constantly crash. You're going to lose a ton of time if you're not constantly saving. Like I said, this is not going to be considered for the score of the game because it's a problem with the emulator, not with Fable 2. Now, an issue I have with Fable 2 is that, and with Fable 1, is that there is no endgame. Now, in the past, many games didn't have this concept of an endgame. So I am going to just point this out, but I am not going to subtract a lot of the score because of this. I just think that this type of games where you invest a lot of time in them and at the end of the game you have nothing to do. Now you can buy that castle that is worth 1,000,000 gold pieces, but other than that there is nothing more to do other than quote-unquote exploring for garbage chests that have nothing in them or nothing that is worth it. Also, this game has less decision making contrary to the first Fable. The first Fable has, I believe, and it felt like it had more decisions that would determine if you were evil or a good character. In this game, there is not a lot of decisions, at the very least in the main story. Another problem is that the story is pretty bad. I never really expected a ton from the story because the first game's story is pretty mediocre too. But the problem is that in Fable 2 the story is pretty abruptly cut. It's very anticlimactic the way you defeat your nemesis. It's pretty stupid, and there is no an actual final boss fight. You don't never fight Lucian. I think this game was rushed out the door by Microsoft back in the day because it feels quite incomplete. The story feels like it ends up really abruptly. I do think this game was unfinished. And my final criticism is that Fable games feel too linear. Like, you don't really feel like you're playing an RPG. You feel like you're playing an adventure game or like a platformer or something like that with RPG elements, and you don't necessarily need to explore or engage with a ton of the quote-unquote systems in the game because you go from point A to point B to point C to point D. It's pretty simple. I find the games pretty linear for my taste. Now for the positives, I do think that this game took advantage of the systems that were promised in Fable 1. I think they are much better done in Fable 2. You access your emotional options or your options to interact with the NPCs in a more easy way, and it's more worth it this time that the NPCs actually like you, because this time around every building that you see in the game is for sale. You can buy it, you can rent them out, you can move in and you will earn money, you can buy shops. And basically this game has this mini game in which you are going to more or less, in a very diluted way, you're going to build your empire, quote unquote, building your empire by buying properties and getting richer and richer of your rents. And that's quite an engaging mechanic, and I think this game takes advantage of those mechanics in a much better way than the first game. So being liked in this game has actually a purpose, because you can now purchase those properties for cheaper prices. At the beginning of the game you have no money, you are very poor, but I do like that this game at the beginning offers jobs to you that you can do, like blacksmithing, and you can earn, quote unquote, a living working in these shops. Or to the people of Albion, you can be a woodcutter, and you can also help in the tavern. And that feels immersive, and that feels really good, because you are just starting. You feel like you're just starting from the bottom, and you end up buying this massive castle at the end of the game, in the post game. So that is a much better way to use the systems of the original game. So this is why I think this game is much better than the first one in that regard, because the game actually tries to use its systems. They are not just there for fluff. So for example, just to give you another example, a more recent game, Kingdom Clown Deliverance 2, that stupid game. At the beginning of the game you get a quest about finding a job, and when I was playing that game I thought, oh shit, I actually have to find a job now. So I was trying to search around towns, trying to see if there was any activity that I could do, but turns out that you don't actually have to find a job. It's just a fucking side quest, a fucking linear, predictable, point A to point B to point C side quest, where you have to go to this blacksmith that allows you to work for him, and that's, quote unquote, finding a job. So you're telling me that a game that released in 2008 has a more deep system than a game that released in 2025? And people glaze Kingdom Clown Deliverance 2 like it's the new Morrowind or something like that. It's a fucking talking and walking simulator. There is barely any action, and the open world is fucking dead. There is barely anything to find in that fucking game. So you're telling me that Fable 2 did that better than a game released in 2025. That's why I am going to give praise to Fable 2, because they actually tried to make this simulation, to immerse the player into you are nothing now, you are nobody, you have nothing, but in the end game you are going to be the most powerful guy and you're going to own a castle. That castle that your sister wanted to live in, you are going to actually be able to buy it. That's part of the power fantasy that should be present in RPGs, and most of them fail to bring that fantasy to reality. There is a ton of side activities like the ones that I mentioned. So it's not only woodcutting, you can actually kidnap people for money. You can also kill people for money. There's a ton of activities that you can do. Not a ton, but there is many. There is plenty of activities, of side activities that you can do during your playthrough. So the game feels less monotonous and you have more options instead of just doing your main quest or your side quests. This time around, this game actually lets you to play the arena that in this game is named the Crucible. You can replay it, contrary to the first game that you can only go once when you have the quest and you can never access that location again. In this game you can actually go back to the Crucible, and in fact, at the very least in the version that I played, there is another Coliseum. So there are two places, there are two arenas in this game. Now the second one feels quite cheap, to be honest, to go through, but you have the option. Also, talking about how the game actually uses the systems better than the first game, this time around the world feels more alive. There are more people and the world feels like it's actually a living, breathing world, unlike on the first game that felt like fake. On the first game, the towns felt fake. They didn't felt organic. In the second game, that's not the case. In the second game, the towns and the cities look and feel alive, and that's really good. This is going to be controversial, so brace yourselves. I really like the magic system in this game. I prefer it to the first game. I know many of you are having already knee-jerk reactions. Many of you are already cursing me and getting really angry because how the fuck I am going to prefer this system? I am going to explain you why. The reason why is because in this game mana doesn't exist, and I don't like when games balance magic out with mana. I don't like mana systems. I even prefer spell uses than mana systems. Or my favorite one is that magic is balanced around casting your spells, like in Dragon's Dogma 1. In Fable 2, you actually have to cast your spells, and it takes a while. So this requires good use of your only crowd control ability, which is slow time. This requires good positioning and actually requires a certain degree of skill. This is how mages should be in video games, in my opinion. They should be balanced around casting their spells, and the more potent your spell, it should require you more casting time. And the wizard, the mage, should have the tools to move around, to control the battleground, to control the enemies, to be able to skillfully be allowed to cast a spell. When you have these magic systems that revolve around mana usage, and you can basically just spam your fucking spells like you are not a mage, like you are basically a fucking cannon, like you're a fucking tank and you're just shooting cannons at enemies, or like you're using a gun, a magic gun. When you're playing a wizard or a mage that feels like you can just spam your spells, that's not good wizard or mage gameplay. Mages have to cast. Mages and wizards should cast spells. That is why in many games magic feels really unbalanced, because the developers don't know how magic works. Magic needs to be casted. Now in Dragon's Dogma, whenever you cast a spell, you consume your stamina, but you have no mana, and failing to cast a big spell leaves you with no fucking stamina, leaves you vulnerable to be hit by the enemies. That's good balance, and that's good game design, good magic game design. Same with Fable 2. You can criticize that there is only one button. Okay, that's valid. But the problem is that this one single button allows you to cast multiple spells. And the more you leave this button pressed, the more you are going to cast. And you can mix and match the spells that you're going to be casting depending on the amount of casting that you do. I really enjoy this system. I think Fable 2, it's a really good game in terms of being able to play a mage. It's superior to the first one, because on the first one there is barely any casting, and I do agree that only having one button is a bit limiting, but at the same time magic is really overpowered in Fable 2, because the only thing that balances magic in Fable 2 is the fact that you have to cast it. So if you didn't have that, it would feel pretty broken. So I really enjoy the magic gameplay in Fable 2, and the good thing is that you can play a mage from the beginning of your playthrough. You don't have to wait. For example, in Fable 1 I had to wait basically to the fucking endgame until I was able to spam my spells. In fact, I already finished the fucking game when I had access to these mana regeneration augments, so only after I beat the first final boss I was quote unquote able to play a mage. It fucking sucked. Let's be fucking honest, magic in the first game is bad designed. In the second game, that's peak magic gameplay. I don't like mana, and I understand that some magic system in different games do use mana, but they use it in a more intelligent way. There are games like Ragnarok Online that do this better. I could make a whole video about magic systems in games. I could do it, and maybe I will do it in the future, but since this is about Fable, I can only tell you that I really enjoyed how casting and how being a mage plays in Fable 2. So with that being said, what will be the score that I will give to this game? Like I said, I am conflicted with this game, because I gave the first game a 7 out of 10. Someone told me that I should have given it a 6 out of 10, and I tend to agree with that opinion, because Fable 1 already looked pretty overrated when I first played it, but now that I played the second one, it feels worse. So I am conflicted into giving Fable 2 a 7 again, because the problems that Fable 2 have are pretty bad. But at the same time, I did enjoy the game more than Fable 1. So I am conflicted if this is a decent game or is actually a good game. Because there are aspects of the game that are actually good, and there are aspects that I think they are not that great. I am going to try to give this game a break, but not too much. Because around the release of Fable 2, we had games like Fallout 3 or Mass Effect, so I cannot give it too much of a high score. So I am going to give it an 8. But if you think that it's a too high of a score and you think it will suit it better to be a 7, I agree with you. I also agree with you if you think Fable 1 is a 6 instead of a 7. Because another aspect that I forgot to mention in the good aspects of this game is that I really enjoy the music of these games. The atmosphere, the setting, the graphics, the art design, it's pretty fucking amazing in these games. So in my opinion, these games are really carried by the music and the art style. All of those elements make Fable games pretty special in my opinion. So I am going to give it an 8. So now I am going to play Fable 3 to see how it is. I have heard plenty of bad stuff about Fable 3. I was trying to play Fable 3 with my girlfriend, but sadly, since the game is not accessible on Steam anymore and you have to buy keys and these keys go for a ton of money, I am not going to pay for those keys. And you can also try to play on Game Pass, but I feel like if the experience is not great, I am going to just waste money. So I am just going to play it alone, and I am going to wait in the future. Maybe they re-release these games on PC, and maybe that way I can play with her. So sadly, one of the good aspects that I will already anticipate for Fable 3, I am not going to be able to use it just because the game is inaccessible, and the means to access this game is not convenient for me. I don't want to buy a subscription to Xbox Game Pass. I don't want to do it, and I don't want to pay an arm and a leg for a fucking key of Fable 3 on Steam. I am not going to do it. So I really expect these games to be put on Steam because we need them. So in short, Fable 2 is actually a good game. It's a better game than Fable 1, and I hope that the new game is going to be good and it's going to make justice to this franchise that I still believe is quite overrated. Even if I liked Fable 2, I still believe these games are quite overrated. But we have the rare opportunity to have a new game of a forgotten franchise, and I really hope for the best, because I think these games, this formula with the new tech that is available these days could be Game of the Year material. But we shall see, because it's Microsoft we are talking about. So with that being said, that would be all.